beginning. I was like, what am I going to do? Like, am I going on disability? Is this going to be it? Like, I'm never doing a surgery again? Like, it was scary at that point because you don't know what's going to happen and you're scared and you have a little PTSD, really. Like, there's just, because it happened while I was actually taping the show, so.
She built an empire out of pimples. She turned a small dermatology office in Southern California into a global brand with over 6 billion views. Millions of people trusted her with their skin, their stories, and their scars. But then came the day when the cameras were rolling and patients were waiting. Dr. Sandra Lee quietly experienced the most terrifying moment of her life, and nobody in the room even knew it was happening. The day things took a tragic turn. It was a regular workday at Skin Physicians and Surgeons in Upland, California. The cameras were set up. The crew was ready. Patients had come in from all over, hoping to finally fix something they had lived with for years. And Dr. Sandra Lee was doing what she had done thousands of times before, treating patients, talking to cameras, being Dr. Pimple Popper. Then something shifted. She started sweating. Not the kind of sweating you get from a long day on your feet, but a sudden and overwhelming wave of heat that came out of nowhere. Her body felt wrong. Her head felt cloudy. But she was a surgeon, a professional, a woman who had built her career on steadiness and control. So she pushed through. She finished the day. She told herself it was probably a hot flash. That evening, she drove to her parents' house near the practice. She could not settle down. In an April 14th interview with People magazine, she recalled, "I just felt very restless. In one leg I kept feeling shooting pains." She tried to go downstairs to grab something to eat, and that is when she noticed the first real warning sign. Walking down the stairs felt wrong. Her balance was off. Her legs were not cooperating the way they should. She did not sleep that night. The next morning was when the real fear arrived. She held out her left hand and watched it slowly collapse on its own. She tried to speak, and the words came out wrong. "I noticed that I had a tough time articulating and just enunciating," she told People. "I thought, am I having a stroke?" What makes this part of the story so devastating is the detail that most news outlets glossed over entirely. Sandra Lee is a physician. She went to medical school. She completed a residency. She has spent over 2 decades treating patients. She knows the warning signs of stroke cold: face drooping, arm weakness, speech difficulty, sudden confusion, problems with balance and coordination. She had almost every single one, and she still almost talked herself out of going to the hospital. This is not a failure on her part. This is a medical reality that researchers have documented for years. Women experiencing strokes are significantly more likely to have their symptoms dismissed, both by themselves and by others, because those symptoms so often look like something else. Sudden sweating, fatigue, restlessness. In a woman in her mid-50s, these signs are almost always explained away as menopause. Sandra Lee had the exact same instinct. She thought hot flash. Her brain was already in crisis. Her father, Dr. Sun Lee, a retired dermatologist who had built the very practice she now runs, was in the house that morning. He looked at his daughter, and he did not hesitate. He told her to get to the emergency room immediately. She went, and the moment she walked through those doors, the story of Dr. Pimple Popper changed forever. "A part of my brain died." The MRI results left no room for doubt. Sandra Lee had suffered an ischemic stroke. A full ischemic stroke caused when a blood clot cuts off the blood supply to part of the brain, starving millions of cells of oxygen. Every minute a stroke goes untreated, the brain loses approximately 2 million cells. There is no reversing that loss. Those cells do not come back. "It was just a shock," she told People. "As a physician, I couldn't deny that I had slurred speech, that I was having weakness on one side, but I was like, well, this is a dream, right?" Then she said the line that stopped every room it entered. "What essentially happened is I had a part of my brain that died." 4. Most people hearing a doctor describe their own stroke in those terms is already overwhelming. But think about what it means specifically for Sandra Lee. Her entire career is built on her hands, her eyes, her voice, the precision that lets her remove a decades-old cyst without leaving a scar, the calm, steady narration that makes her patients feel safe while she works, the sharp, articulate presence on camera that built her into a global brand. The stroke attacked all of it at once. She listed her risk factors herself without any prompting. High blood pressure, high cholesterol, chronic stress. All 3 were present. All 3 were, by her own admission, not under control at the time. Her neurologist, Dr. Kim Tenser of USC's Keck Medical School, provided the broader picture in the People coverage. She noted that doctors are now seeing a nearly 15% increase in stroke prevalence among patients between the ages of 45 and 64. Sandra Lee, at 55, falls directly in the middle of that range. This is not a story about bad luck. It is a story about a generation of high-performing professionals, particularly women, running their bodies past the point of warning for years, and then wondering why the bill comes due. Filming on Season 2 of Dr. Pimple Popper, breaking out halted immediately. 20 planned episodes. A brand new show on Lifetime. A second chance at a television career after TLC ended. All of it stopped on a November morning in 2025 because a doctor who spent her career helping other people forgot to take care of herself. The woman who had an answer for everyone else's skin problems had no answer for what was happening inside her own brain. To understand how much Sandra Lee stood to lose, you have to go back to a rural clinic in Malaysia in the late 1960s and a young doctor who was completely out of his depth. The man with the borrowed book. Dr. Soon Sung Lee had come from poverty. He grew up in Singapore as one of 10 children. His wife Irene grew up in Malaysia, also one of 10 children in a family with almost nothing. They met, they studied, they built a life through sheer determination. By the time Soon Sung was working as a medical officer in rural Malaysia, he was competent in general medicine. But skin diseases baffled him every single time. His solution became the foundation of everything. I managed by going behind the privacy curtain to flip through a small book on skin diseases left behind by a U.S. Care Medico team, he told Practical Dermatology. Every time I consulted this book, my interest in dermatology increased until I decided that I would become a dermatologist. Soon Sung and Irene emigrated to the United States in 1969. Sandra was born in Flushing, Queens in December of 1970, 1 year after her parents arrived. When she was 5, the family moved to Southern California. Her father opened Skin Physicians and Surgeons in Upland, California, the same practice Sandra runs today. She grew up surrounded by dermatology. Textbooks everywhere. Skin disease photographs on coffee tables that would horrify most children. Sandra was not horrified. She was fascinated. She went to UCLA for biology, completed medical school at Hahnemann University in Philadelphia, and met her future husband Jeffrey Rebesh on the very first day of orientation. Jeff came from Westchester County, New York, had played sports at Dartmouth, and arrived at medical school thinking about orthopedics. Sandra changed that. He followed her into dermatology. They married on May 28, 2000, and built both a family and a practice together in Upland. But her path was not clean. After her 4th year of medical school, Sandra did not match into a dermatology residency. The specialty her father had chosen because of a borrowed book. The field she had been raised inside. She didn't get in. "You feel like you're in a dream," she said years later. "Is this really happening? I even considered emergency medicine for the blink of an eye." She eventually matched at Southern Illinois University, completed a fellowship in San Diego under renowned laser surgeon Dr. Richard Fitzpatrick, and came back to California to take over her father's practice. Her father's reaction to what happened next was perfectly human. I used to hear patients remark that, "Oh, you are Dr. Soon Lee's daughter." Now, I only hear, "Oh, you are Dr. Sandra Lee's father." After this, she did something that changed her life. 6 billion views and a borrowed idea. In October of 2010, Sandra Lee created a YouTube channel. The very first video was dry, professional, and almost no one watched it. For 4 years, the channel was basically a digital advertisement for her practice. Then in 2014, she posted a blackhead extraction on Instagram. It went viral. She had been inspired watching a hairstylist rack up millions of views showing hair treatments online. Could I do this? She asked herself. Because dermatology is a really visual field. She started posting. People could not stop watching. By 2015, she was uploading extraction videos to YouTube regularly and using the name Dr. Pimple Popper. Her single most watched video, a giant blackhead being extracted from an 85-year-old woman, has been viewed over 75 million times. Her business model was simple and effective. Patients received discounted or free treatment in exchange for written permission to be filmed. Everyone left satisfied. Her fans, who call themselves Popaholics, grew into a community of millions. By the time TLC came calling in 2018, Dr. Pimple Popper the television show was inevitable. It premiered on July 11, 2018, became the top-rated cable program in its time slot among women 25 to 54, and ran for 9 seasons and 111 episodes. She won the Critics' Choice Real TV Award for Female Star of the Year 3 consecutive times. She launched SLMD Skincare, which expanded into over 1,600 Target stores across the United States. She wrote a book. She appeared on late-night television. At her peak, her YouTube channel was generating close to $100,000 a month. When TLC ended the show in 2023, she did not disappear. She moved to Lifetime with a new format called Dr. Pimple Popper, Breaking Out, which added a mentorship element and showed her personal life on camera for the first time. Season 1 aired in April of 2025. Season 2 was greenlit in August of 2025 with 20 new episodes. Jeffrey had become an executive producer. The machine was running faster than ever. And that was exactly the problem. She was trying to deal with things, but then stroke stopped everything for her. Learning to hold a scalpel again. For 2 full months, Sandra Lee did not operate. She did not film. She barely spoke publicly. From November of 2025 through January of 2026, she went through intensive physical and occupational therapy, working on what she described as very basic things. Balance. Walking in a straight line. Rebuilding grip strength in her left hand. For Sandra Lee, the stakes were brutally specific. A grip weakness in her left hand was not just an inconvenience. It was a direct threat to her ability to perform surgery. Dermatological procedures require fine motor control, steady hands, and consistent precision. I don't like that I don't have total control of my left hand, she told People. If I feel like I'm not at my best, it's very scary. Her speech changed too, in ways she says most people cannot hear, but she notices constantly. I notice it right now that I don't speak exactly the way I used to, she said. You're really embarrassed to speak, because you notice it. For a woman who has spent years talking to cameras in front of millions of people, the self-consciousness is real, and it is new. In January of 2026, she returned to the set. She walked back into the same environment where her brain started dying. The cameras. The operating room. The patients. It was very scary for me, she said. There's a lot of PTSD because it happened while I was filming the show. A stroke does not disappear cleanly. Dead brain cells do not come back. For the first time in her professional life, Sandra Lee faced something she absolutely could not fix. She had to live with it instead. And somehow, in living with it, she found something none of her 6 billion viewers had ever seen from her before. In Asian cultures, what stroke means. She could have kept this private. The stroke happened in November of 2025. She returned to work in January of 2026. The public did not know. Episodes were being filmed. Patients were being seen. Nobody outside her immediate circle had any idea that anything had happened. She could have let Season 2 air, let the footage speak for itself, and let viewers draw their own conclusions in real time. Instead, she chose People magazine. An exclusive interview, published on April 14th of 2026, with photographs taken at her home in Los Angeles. A full account of everything. And she explained in the same interview exactly why going public was so difficult. In Asian cultures in particular, they don't tell people they've had a stroke because it can be seen as a sign of weakness. Sandra Lee is Chinese American. Her father is from Singapore. Her mother is from Malaysia. She was raised inside a culture that values stoicism, that treats illness as a private matter, and that associates public vulnerability with personal failure. The immigrant drive that got her parents to America, that pushed her through medical school, that built the practice and the brand and the television shows, runs directly against the kind of openness she chose to exercise in that People interview. In breaking that silence, she was going against everything her upbringing taught her about how a strong person handles weakness. She did it anyway, and she was specific about why. I want to get the word out that if you have symptoms like I had, make sure you see your doctor. Take care of yourself. The timing of the disclosure was also deliberate. She went public 6 days before Season 2 premiered on Lifetime on April 20th of 2026. The show includes actual footage from the day of her stroke and her recovery. By speaking first, she controlled how the story was told. She chose the frame. She chose the language. She chose to make her worst moment into a conversation rather than a spectacle. A blessing in disguise. When Sandra Lee calls the stroke a blessing in disguise, she says it without the performance of gratitude that you often hear from people surviving something they cannot fully process. She says it the way a doctor talks about a diagnosis. Plainly, precisely, as a fact she has already examined from every angle. I want to think about it as a blessing in disguise, because it reminds you to take better care of yourself. For years, the machine that is Sandra Lee ran without maintenance, a full surgical practice, a YouTube channel requiring constant new content, 9 seasons of a television show. She was doing what millions of high-performing people do. She was outrunning the bill. She was treating the warning signs as manageable later and prioritizing the work as urgent right now. The stroke ended that calculation completely. 2 months of physical therapy, blood thinners every day, home exercises that she does before bed, regular monitoring of the numbers she ignored for years. A pace that is slower than before, not because she chose it, but because her body finally demanded it. And in that forced slowdown, something she had not expected, clarity. It really makes you realize how precious life is. She is back on screen. Season 2 of Dr. Pimple Popper, Breaking Out, is airing on Lifetime starting April 20th of 2026. 20 new episodes. Her hands are working. Her voice is close to what it was. Her neurologist says her symptoms are mostly resolved. By every external measure, she has recovered. But the full arc of the story carries a weight that no headline fully captured. Her father discovered dermatology from a borrowed book behind a privacy curtain in a Malaysian jungle. He emigrated to America with almost nothing, built a practice from zero, and raised a daughter inside that practice who would eventually become the most watched dermatologist in human history. Decades later, that same father looked at his daughter in the hallway of their home, saw the stroke written across her face and her body, and sent her to the emergency room in time. Sandra Lee did not just survive a stroke. She survived the moment when everything she had been given, everything she had built, and everything she had put at risk all collided in a single November morning. She walked back into the place where it happened, turned the cameras back on, and chose to let the world see exactly what that looked like. That is not the story of a woman who almost lost everything. That is the story of a woman who found out what everything actually means. Drop your thoughts in the comments and let us know what this story meant to you.